They thought she was just a maintenance worker, another nameless figure setting up targets on the SEAL training range. Petty Officer Drake dismisses her instantly, arrogance dripping from his commands. But what he doesn't know, Specialist Morgan holds the highest marksmanship qualifications in 3 districts. Soon the echo of each flawless shot she fires will unravel Drake's authority piece by humiliating peace. Stick around, the powerful are about to learn what happens when hidden talents emerge and justice hits harder than any bullet ever could. We read every single comment, so tell us where you're watching from and what time you found this. And don't forget to subscribe. The morning sun glints off my chevrons as I, Petty Officer James Drake, stride across the SEAL training range, my boots crunching over spent brass casings. The familiar weight of my custom Sig Sauer presses against my hip, a constant reminder of my authority, my superiority. Each step echoes with purpose, with power. This is my domain. A figure catches my eye. Just another range maintenance worker methodically checking targets. Her movements are precise, almost too precise, but I refuse to acknowledge that observation. Clear the line! I bark my voice, carrying across the range with practiced command. The chevrons on my sleeve catch the light as I unconsciously straighten my posture, towering over her smaller frame. She turns, and something in her steady gaze makes my stomach clench. But I'm Petty Officer James Drake. I don't back down, I don't second guess. I said, clear the line. I repeat, fingers drumming against my holster. Range inspection, above your clearance level. The words taste like victory on my tongue, but they turn to ash when a voice cuts through the morning air. Actually, Petty Officer Drake Specialist Morgan has the highest range qualification scores in 3 districts. Captain Martinez's words slice through my certainty like a knife. I watch, rooted to the spot, as phones emerge from the gathered crowd. The distinctive click of camera shutters mingles with the morning breeze. SEAL prejudice already flashing across screens before I can process what's happening. Perhaps Petty Officer Drake, Specialist Morgan, says, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent range. You'd like to see those qualifications firsthand. She moves to the firing line with a grace that makes my expertise look amateurish. The next 3 minutes become my personal eternity. Each perfect shot she fires echoes like judgment. Ping, ping, ping! The targets dance to her rhythm, not a single miss, not a moment's hesitation. My hand tightens on my holster, my symbol of authority now feeling more like an anchor dragging me down. Type humbled if you've ever judged too quickly. Someone in the crowd calls out phones, still recording my very public education in humility. Looking down at my chevrons, catching that damning reflection once more, a question burns in my mind. How many others have I wrongly dismissed? How many talents have I ignored because they didn't fit my narrow view of capability? The range remains silent except for the gentle ping of her final target falling. In 24 hours, I'll understand the full impact of this moment. But right now, all I can do is stand here watching my carefully constructed world of assumptions begin to crack. My fingers trace the edge of my chevrons, these symbols of authority I've worn like armor. For the first time in my career, they feel heavy, uncomfortable. A weight of responsibility rather than a badge of privilege. Will my authority survive this challenge? More importantly, should it? In the distance, a final target swings gently in the morning breeze, the sound of its movement, a whispered reminder of how quickly everything can change. The sun continues to glint off my chevrons, but now it feels less like glory and more like a spotlight exposing truths I've spent years ignoring. Specialist Morgan. Captain Martinez's voice carries across the range. The advanced tactical team has been waiting for an instructor of your caliber. The words hit me like physical blows, each one stripping away another layer of my presumed superiority. I stand rigid watching as my carefully constructed world begins its 24-hour transformation, while somewhere in the growing crowd, another phone captures the moment a SEAL's prejudice begins its very public fall. SEAL prejudice trends higher with each passing second, and I can already feel the weight of what's coming. Petty Officer James Drake strides across the sun-baked SEAL training range, his boots leaving heavy imprints in the dust. The morning's humiliation burns in his throat as he watches Specialist Alice Morgan methodically checking targets. Each precise movement of hers feels like a personal assault on his 15 years of authority. His mind drifts to Chief Warrant Officer Thompson, his first instructor who'd pulled him aside 12 years ago. "Women don't belong in combat roles, Drake. Remember that." The memory once comforting now sits uneasily in his chest, as Morgan's efficiency proves every assumption wrong. Studies he'd dismissed flash through his mind, research showing female operators matching or exceeding male performance in precision tasks. He'd labeled them political correctness, but watching Morgan work the data points strike like bullets. His hand unconsciously tightens around his Sig Sauer, the weapon that had always been his symbol of mastery. "Excellent form, Specialist Morgan," calls out Lieutenant Rodriguez. The words pierce Drake's armor. His fellow instructors who'd laughed at his jokes this morning now avoid his gaze. The validation he'd counted on evaporates like morning dew under the intensifying sun. Past incidents surface in his memory. Other female trainees he'd washed out. Had they been as capable as Morgan? His stomach churns as he recalls their faces, their determination, their eventual resignation. A Department of Defense report he'd ignored last month cited systemic bias in special operations training. The statistics dance mockingly before his eyes qualified female candidates, dropping out at 3 times the rate of males, often citing instructor hostility. Drake's phone buzzes. A notification "Hartwarming Drake down," trending locally. His morning outburst captured on training cameras has leaked. The comments scroll past, "Another dinosaur exposed." Time's up for toxic leadership. Each word chips away at his carefully constructed facade. Lieutenant Commander Hayes approaches her, expression grave. "Drake, we need to discuss your training evaluation methods. Several past candidates have come forward." His chest tightens. The morning's incident has cracked open a door he'd kept firmly shut. Have you encountered resistance to your authority before Petty Officer share your experience below? The trending video's caption reads. The comments section fills with stories. Other instructors, other units, same pattern. Drake's fingers trace the special warfare insignia on his chest, the trident that had always justified his actions. Now it feels like it's judging him. "Standards matter," he mutters, but the words ring hollow as Morgan demonstrates perfect form on the advanced course. Research papers he'd dismissed as agenda-driven years ago prove prophetic. Studies from Naval Special Warfare Command itself showing diverse teams outperforming homogeneous units. Data about improved mission success rates with mixed-gender teams in complex operations. Each fact hammers at his certainty like rounds on a steel target. The range echoes with the sound of Morgan's precise shots, each one a reminder of his crumbling authority. His fellow instructors gather in clusters, their whispered conversations carrying fragments to his ears. Review board, pattern of behavior, necessary changes. Type "truth hurts" if you've ever had your beliefs challenged by reality. Drake's phone continues buzzing with notifications. Past trainees speaking out. Videos surfacing. His career built on what he thought was maintaining standards reveals itself as something else entirely. The morning heat rises with his growing unease, but it's his certitude, not the temperature, that's making him sweat. The Sig Sauer at his side, once a comfortable weight, now feels like an anchor pulling him toward a reckoning he can't escape. Each target Morgan checks strips away another layer of his justifications, leaving him exposed to a truth he's spent years denying. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a question begins to form. How many others had he wronged while hiding behind the shield of maintaining standards? Petty Officer James Drake's hands trembled as he holstered his Sig Sauer, the weight of the weapon now feeling like a mockery against his hip. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the SEAL training range, but the heat wasn't what made sweat trickle down his neck. The echo of Morgan's perfect shot still rang in his ears, each ping of steel on steel hammering another nail into the coffin of his authority. His phone buzzed incessantly. Social media was exploding with videos of his humiliation juxtaposed with Specialist Morgan's flawless performance. Just Expert Morgan was trending, and each notification felt like a personal attack. Drake's fingers clenched around his phone as he read comment after comment praising her expertise while ridiculing his earlier dismissal. "Sir, the commander wants to see you." The voice of his junior officer carried an unfamiliar note of hesitation. Drake noticed how the young man avoided direct eye contact, something unthinkable just hours ago. The respect that once permeated every interaction was evaporating like morning dew under the harsh afternoon sun. Walking across the compound, Drake felt eyes following him. Whispers trailed in his wake. The same personnel who had laughed at his jokes this morning now turned away, finding sudden interest in their clipboards or phones. His chest tightened as he passed the wall of honor where his own achievement photos hung. Would they still be there tomorrow? The Sig Sauer at his hip, his symbol of authority and expertise, now felt like a scarlet letter. Drake reached down to touch it, an old habit of reassurance, but quickly withdrew his hand. Every movement felt watched, judged, measured against the precision he'd failed to display. Inside his office, Drake discovered his email inbox flooded with messages from superiors. The subject lines made his stomach churn. Incident review. Formal inquiry. Conduct assessment. 6 years of building his reputation, of cultivating his image as the range's premier instructor, and it was unraveling faster than a poorly tied knot. A text message from his mentor, Chief Watson, delivered the final blow. "Saw the video. We need to talk about your position here." Drake's hands grew cold. Chief Watson had sponsored his advancement, had vouched for his character. Now even he was distancing himself. The viral video had already reached the naval community's private forums. His colleagues at other bases were sharing it, adding their own stories. Remember when Drake failed that female recruit last year? Starting to make sense now. The comments painted a pattern he'd never acknowledged, each one stripping away another layer of his carefully constructed facade. Drake's inner reflection burned. I built my throne on shifting sand, didn't I? Each time I dismissed someone like Morgan, I was really revealing my own fears. Now everyone sees what I refused to see. That competence doesn't wear a uniform the way I thought it should. The range echoes with more than just gunshots today. It rings with the sound of my certainties shattering. Have you ever watched your carefully constructed world crumble in real time? Drop a 1 and Torium. Drop a 1 in the comments if you've experienced a moment that changed everything you thought you knew. The afternoon training sessions had been canceled, officially for range maintenance, but everyone knew the real reason. Drake sat alone in his office, the Sig Sauer placed on his desk, its polished surface reflecting his distorted image. Each time he reached for it, Morgan's perfect grouping flashed in his mind, and his hand withdrew as if burned. A notification lit up his screen. The base newspaper wanted a statement about the incident. Their email included a photo of Morgan's targets, 5 perfect holes grouped tighter than any he'd shot in years. The signature line mentioned the journalist was the same woman he'd berated last month for wasting his time with questions about gender integration in special operations. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the range, Drake realized the darkness gathering wasn't just outside. His own shadow, once so large and imposing, was shrinking with each passing hour, and tomorrow's light would reveal a very different landscape, one where Petty Officer James Drake's word was no longer law. The Sig Sauer gleamed in the dying light, no longer a symbol of authority, but a reminder of how quickly certainty could become hubris. Tomorrow he would have to face them all again. But tonight, alone in his office, the weight of consequences pressed down like a tide he couldn't fight anymore. The setting sun bleeds across the SEAL training range as I, Petty Officer James Drake, force my leaden feet forward. My Sig Sauer, usually a comforting weight at my hip, now feels like an accusation. Earlier today, I'd wielded it like a scepter of authority. Now, each step toward Specialist Morgan sends tremors through my carefully constructed world. The rhythmic pop-pop-pop of her perfect shots still echoes in my mind, a percussion track to my humiliation. The viral video of my earlier dismissal of her, followed by my own embarrassing performance and her flawless demonstration, has racked up 50,000 views in the past few hours. Toward Drakedown trends on military forums, each notification on my phone like a needle under my skin. My fingers trace the surface of my rank insignia, the motif of my supposed superiority, as I approach. The metal feels cold, alien. Specialist Morgan stands at the firing line, her posture precise, professional. None of the fear or deference I'd expected demanded just hours ago. Specialist Morgan. My voice cracks, unfamiliar in its humility. She turns her expression neutral, but her eyes sharp with recognition. The same eyes I'd dismissed this morning when declaring women unfit for advanced tactical training. The setting sun catches her qualification badges, each one earned despite people like me standing in her way. I was wrong. The words scrape past years of ingrained prejudice. I would appreciate your guidance on the new firing stance modifications. A slight lift of her eyebrow is the only acknowledgement of how much this moment costs me. The mechanical whir of targets being reset provides a soundtrack to my surrender. Each target represents a piece of my arrogance falling away. Front sight focus. She instructs, her voice carrying the same quiet authority I'd ignored earlier. You're anticipating recoil throwing off your grouping. For the next hour, I submit to her expertise. Each correction chips away at decades of assumptions. My phone buzzes continuously. More comments, more shares of my downfall. But for once, I'm learning instead of commanding. Have you ever had to completely rebuild your foundation? Type yes if you've faced your own prejudices head-on. As night falls, the range lights click on with industrial precision. My groups are tightening, but more importantly, my mind is expanding. Other trainees drift by phones, capturing this revolution in real time. Drakedown evolves into True-Eyed Drake Learns. Your fundamentals were solid, Specialist Morgan says as we wrap up. You just needed to open your mind to a different perspective. The words hit harder than any direct criticism could. I remove my rank insignia, studying it under the harsh range lights. I'll be recommending you for the advanced tactical instructor position, I hear myself say. Your expertise is invaluable to the unit. The insignia catches the light one last time before I tuck it away. No longer a symbol of power, but a reminder of tonight's transformation. As I turn to leave my step lighter, despite the weight of humility, Specialist Morgan's voice follows me. See you at tomorrow's qualification, Petty Officer Drake. Share this moment if you believe true strength lies in admitting when we're wrong. Drake learns. My world has shifted on its axis, but for the first time today I'm standing on solid ground. The Sig Sauer at my hip is just a tool, now not a symbol. And I, Petty Officer James Drake, am ready to be a student rather than a tyrant. Petty Officer James Drake stands at the same firing line where his world shifted just 24 hours ago, his fingers tracing the worn grip of his Sig Sauer. The morning sun catches the brass casings scattered across the range, each one a reminder of his transformation. The weapon that once served as his scepter of authority now feels different in his hands. Lighter, humbler. Yesterday I stood here believing I knew everything about marksmanship and authority. He addresses his new class, his voice carrying none of its former arrogance. The familiar crack of gunfire in the distance punctuates his words. I was wrong. Dead wrong. His gaze sweeps across the faces before him, seeing in them the same prejudices he held just a day ago. The viral video of his humiliation, if New Dawn SEALs still trending, plays in his mind. But now, incredibly, he feels grateful for it. Specialist Alice Morgan didn't just outshoot me. He continues demonstrating the precise stance she had used. She shattered every assumption I'd built my career upon. When she stepped up to this line, I saw only what I wanted to see, not the expert marksman she is. The morning breeze carries the scent of gunpowder as he raises his Sig Sauer, mimicking Morgan's technique. This weapon taught me its final lesson yesterday. It's not about power or position. It's about respect, expertise, and the courage to admit when you're wrong. His students lean forward as he describes the previous day's events, his voice thick with emotion. I watched her group her shots with surgical precision, each round exactly where she intended. While I stood there, my own targets betraying my arrogance, she demonstrated what true mastery looks like. The viral footage plays on the range's digital board behind him. His dismissive gestures, her flawless performance, his visible shock. Comments scroll past, leadership redefined, and this is what change looks like. Drake doesn't flinch from them anymore. Type respect in the comments if you've ever had to confront your own biases, he says to the camera, documenting this session. Share this moment if you believe in transformation. He places his Sig Sauer on the instruction table, the same weapon that witnessed his fall and rise. Yesterday's failure wasn't about marksmanship. It was about the poison of prejudice. Every assumption I made about Specialist Morgan revealed more about my flaws than her capabilities. A final round cracks in the distance as he concludes, I stand before you not as the same petty officer who thought he knew everything, but as someone who learned that true strength lies in acknowledging our mistakes and growing from them. The morning sun fully illuminates the range, now casting long shadows behind him. This isn't just about guns and targets anymore. It's about seeing people for their true capabilities, not our preconceptions. Specialist Morgan didn't just outshoot me. She showed me a better way to lead. His Sig Sauer gleams on the table, transformed from a symbol of intimidation to one of instruction. Drop a 2 if this story of transformation resonates with you, he says to the camera. Let's make New Dawn SEALs more than a trending moment. Let's make it a movement for change. The sound of applause ripples across the range as Specialist Morgan herself steps forward from the observing crowd, her presence a living testament to his words. Drake extends his hand to her, not as a superior to a subordinate, but as one professional to another. Yesterday I was the barrier. Today I'm the bridge. He concludes, his voice carrying across the range. And tomorrow we build something better together. The morning light catches his instructor's badge as he pins it to his uniform. No longer a symbol of authority, but of responsibility. The viral hashtag New Dawn SEALs continues to climb, but Drake no longer fears it. He embraces it, knowing that his very public failure has become an equally public lesson in growth, respect, and the power of demonstrated excellence to shatter prejudice.